welcome back to Loopy Mabel Vintage Style Crochet. My name is Jane, and in today's quick video I'm just going to show you how to do a very lovely crossed cluster granny square. Slight variation on the granny square and maybe the solid granny square, which gives you this very pretty effect. So if you want to crochet along with me, why not grab some yarn and a hook, and I shall see you in a short while. So in this tutorial I'm going to show you a slight variation on the normal granny square. I love this pattern. It's called the crossed cluster granny square, I believe. I think because the clusters form like a cross pattern. You can see the clusters there. It's such a pretty square. I've done two variations, one in one colour and one in alternate rows, just to show you the difference. And it's such a simple square to do, so pretty and effective, so I thought I would do a quick tutorial on this. You need to be familiar with the basic crochet stitches of the treble and the chain stitch, so if you're not familiar with those, please check out my other videos on that. In today's tutorial I'm using a 4.5mm hook, purely so it's easy for you to see on the screen, and I'm going to be using Drops Lima in this lovely grey colour. If you're interested in what shade it is, it's shade 9010. So to begin, we're going to make our slip knot, whichever way you are comfortable with, and we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. And we're going to slip stitch into the very first chain from our hook. So find that first chain, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and then pull through to slip stitch. And you've created a small chain ring there. And we're going to be working into that centre for this first round. To start our first round, we're going to do our first cluster, so we're going to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and then we're going to do our cluster stitch. Now the cluster stitch is worked over 3 half trebles, so those 3 chains count as our first half treble. So yarn over, down into that centre, pull your yarn up, yarn through, and that's half a treble there. Repeat that again, so yarn over, down through that centre, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, so it's classed as 3. The 3 chain there is classed as the first, second, third, so there's our 3, and pull through. We've done our first cluster, and we're going to chain 4, and then we're going to do our next cluster stitch. So yarn over, down through the centre, yarn over, pull through, so it's 3 times, yarn over and pull through to finish off that cluster. And then we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to do another cluster. 1, 2, yarn over, pull through, and then chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and down again into another cluster. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through, and then chain 2. 1. So chain 2, so we're going to go back down and do another cluster. There we go. And then chain 4 there, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then another cluster, 2, 3, yarn over and pull through. Now it might start to get a little bit tight in the centre there, so you might have to move some of your stitches along. It's only for this row, so just squeeze them along just to give you a little bit more room for the final few stitches that we've got for this round. So we just need to do a chain 2, and then we're going to finish off with a cluster, chain 4, a cluster back down there. So let's do that. So take that out the way. And so chain 4, yarn over, one last cluster, so just make a little bit more room. So yarn over, our last cluster, 1, 2, 3, yarn over and pull through, and finish with chain 2, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of that first cluster that we did to finish off that round. So we should have something like this, 4 corners. The 4 corners are the ones with the chain 4s in, and then we've got the chain spaces on either side. So at this point you can change colour, so you would fasten off here, and then you would tie your new colour to any of the corner chain spaces. So that's what I did in this one. So you just tie your new colour, and then you just carry on as we are now. I'm just going to continue in this same colour. So we need to be in this space here, so to get us across here we're going to slip stitch across a couple of stitches. So just insert your hook into the top of those stitches and just slip stitch, and one more time, just so we're now in the right position. So we're now where we need to be, and we're going to start our cluster corners there. So it's going to be a cluster, chain 2 and a cluster in this space here. So in order to do that we need to start off with our 3 chain to bring us up for the height, then yarn over and finish off this first cluster with 2 more half trebles, and then yarn over, pull through, chain 2, and then back down and do another cluster, just 3 half trebles, yarn over and pull through. And then we're going to chain 2, and then into this next space, which is like the sides, we're going to do 3 trebles. So yarn over and 3 trebles, chain 2, and we're into our next corner. So we're going to do a cluster, chain 2 and cluster stitch. Chain 2 and another cluster, and chain 2, 1 and 2, and going down into that side there. So it's just going to be 3 trebles, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and then back to our corner, so cluster, chain 2 and cluster. Chain 2. Chain 2 and again 3 trebles. Chain 2 and then we've got our another corner, so cluster, chain 2, cluster. It really is quite a simple square, but so pretty. Just another variation really on the granny square. Sometimes you're just looking for something different to do, because you've got the sunburst, obviously you've got the granny square. This one is called the crossed cluster. So there is quite a few out there, so you don't always have to stick with the granny square. So let's see where we are now. So we're coming on to our last side space. So we finished those 2 clusters, so we're just going to chain 2 and we're going to finish with 3 treble into that side space. Chain 2 and slip stitch to the top of that cluster, and that's round 2. In we go, and you can see you've just got the clusters coming out on the corners, so pretty. So let's do the next round, round 3. So yet again we need to be into that space. If you're changing colour, obviously you don't slip stitch it across, you just finish off your colour here and then attach your new yarn to any of the corners. But obviously we're sticking with the same yarns and I need to be there, so we're just going to slip stitch across. So you just insert your hook to the top of your stitch, slip stitch, and one more time and slip stitch. So this is where I need to be, and we're going to repeat again. So it's going to be chain 3 and then finish that cluster, chain 2 and back down for another cluster, chain 2. Now we've got our first row now with our 3 trebles along here, so now, and we've got the space either side. So from now on, all the way, as many rounds as you do, you may want to just do 4 or 5 rounds, or you may want to continue into like a blanket or a throw. But in every of these spaces on the side, you're just going to do your 2 chain and your 2 trebles. And then you go, oops, and then you're going to treble the top of these stitches, so 3 trebles there. 1, 2, 3, and then 2 more trebles into that space. And then we're back to our corner, so chain 2 and then our clusters. So this really is simple once you get going. Chain 2, back down for another cluster, chain 2, always chain 2 now, and into that space we're going to do 2 trebles, and then we're going to continue with trebles along the top of the 3 trebles from below, and then then 2 more trebles into that remaining space. Chain 2, and you're back to your next corner. So we'll continue on to the next corner. So clusters, chain 2, cluster, chain 2, and then we're going to treble into that space. I'm going to do 2 trebles, and then continue along the top of the 3 trebles there from the previous row. So obviously as your rows get bigger, you'll have more trebles to do along the sides. There's always 2 trebles in the spaces. Chain 2, back to our corner, so cluster, chain 2, cluster, chain 2, so 2 trebles into that space, and then 3 trebles, and then 2 more trebles into that next space, chain 2, and then we're going to slip stitch to the top of that cluster. Made our first stitch of the round, and that completes row 3. So I hope you can see the pattern forming now. So you've got the clusters in the corners and the trebles around the side. I think it's a combination of the granny square and the solid granny square type of look. So you've got, you know, the trebles going on looking like the granny, and then you've got the holes, the spaces going through, which is similar to the solid granny square. So if you wanted to change colour, you would fasten off here and attach your yarn to any of the corners, but we're just going to continue on. So yet again I need to move across, so I'm just going to slip stitch, insert my hook and just slip stitch across. Oops. So I'm in the right spot, and then chain 3. So this basically is the pattern now. So cluster, chain 2 and cluster, chain 2, and there's our next space. So we're going to do 2 trebles, and obviously last time we did 3 trebles, but because we've done 2 on either side, this will be now increased. So we should have 7 along here, 2, 4, 6, 7. So we now need to crochet 7. So every row the sides are going to increase. The sides are going to increase by 4 because you're increasing 2 on either side. So that's another way of checking that you've got the right number. So we'll crochet all the way along. And we've got to the space, so we'll treble 2 there, and we're back to our corner, so chain 2, and we're going to go all the way around now. So we're going to do our cluster corner, so it's cluster, chain 2, cluster, then chain 2, and then 2 trebles into the space, treble all the way along, 2 trebles into that space, chain 2, then our corner. So if you want to work your way all the way around, I shall see you somewhere round about here. So pause the video and I shall see you somewhere around about here. So hopefully you're now along the last side. So we're just going to crochet along the top of the remaining stitches. So trebles all the way along. And then 2 into that last space, chain 2, and just slip stitch to finish off the round, the top of that first cluster that we did. And there we go, there is round 4. Isn't it pretty? It's so pretty, I love it. So basically that is the crossed cluster granny square. You can see the crossed clusters. Now you can either finish off here, or you could do another round, another 2 rounds, and all you're going to do in every corner is, obviously if you're using the same yarn, you just need to slip stitch across to get you to your starting point like we've done earlier. Obviously you just continue round with your cluster corners, and obviously the more rounds you do, you're going to have increase of trebles along the sides by 4 every round. So you started off with 3, then it went to 7, then it would be 11, and then it would be 15. So if you wanted to keep track of what row you're on or what number you should have, if you just count these, you know, you should always be up, you know, these trebles should always go up by 4. So this round we should have 11, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. And you just obviously continue around or finish here. It's such a pretty crochet square, and that's the crossed cluster granny square. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on the crossed cluster granny square. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you don't already do so, and don't forget to hit the bell so you'll be notified of all the videos that I bring out. Don't forget, it's only crochet and practice does make perfect, so you can always pull it out and start again, pause the video at any point and rewind. Ask me any questions in the comments box below and I will get back to you, I promise. But in the meantime, please take care and happy crochet!